I never believed in ghosts until I stepped inside the abandoned Blackwood Asylum. I was part of a small team of urban explorers, a group of 5 friends obsessed with uncovering the hidden histories of decaying places. We'd heard the rumors about Blackwood for years, a place where unethical experiments were rumored to have been performed on desperate souls, where cries of agony and whispered secrets still echoed in the dark. We set out on a chilly autumn evening, armed with flashlights, cameras, and an insatiable curiosity that bordered on recklessness. The asylum loomed ahead like a hulking relic of a forgotten time. Its once white walls were now stained with the patina of neglect, and nature had begun reclaiming the structure with creeping ivy and wild brambles. Rusted iron bars and shattered windows hinted at a violent past. Local legends spoke of patients who had vanished without a trace, and of sinister events that led to its abrupt closure decades ago. As we approached the main entrance, a heavy sense of foreboding settled over us. I remember feeling a chill, as though unseen eyes were tracking our every step. We set up our base camp a few hundred feet away, huddling in the fading light. Our leader, Marcus, a pragmatic skeptic with a passion for debunking ghost stories, laid out the plan. "We document everything," he said firmly. "Stick together, and if anyone feels uncomfortable, we pull back. We're here for the truth, not to stir up ancient spirits." We all nodded, though deep down, each of us felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Inside, the asylum was a labyrinth of crumbling corridors and forgotten rooms. The air was thick with dust, and every step stirred up memories of a long-lost past. Faded paint on peeling walls bore the marks of hurried warnings and scribbled messages. "Don't look, they're here," and cryptic symbols whose meaning we could only guess. Our flashlights danced over rusted equipment and scattered personal belongings, relics of lives that had once been entangled in the building's dark history. As we moved deeper, we discovered a small recording room tucked away behind a collapsed partition. Inside, a dusty reel-to-reel tape recorder sat abandoned on a table, its dials frozen in time. Curiosity overpowered our fear, and Marcus managed to rig up a portable power source to see if the old machine would still function. When a low, crackling hum filled the room, our hearts skipped a beat. The tape played a garbled message, a voice barely audible reciting dates, names, and mentions of experiments that defied ethical boundaries. The recording hinted at procedures that blurred the lines between science and cruelty, and it ended abruptly with a burst of static that sounded eerily like a scream. Emboldened by our find, we split into pairs to explore the rest of the building, agreeing to reconvene in the central hall. I teamed up with Eliza, a quiet but determined researcher with a penchant for history. As we navigated through narrow hallways and decaying treatment rooms, we stumbled upon a series of personal journals. Their pages, yellowed and fragile, recounted the harrowing experiences of patients subjected to unspeakable experiments. One journal detailed the routine of therapy sessions that involved isolation, sensory deprivation, and mysterious injections. The entries spoke of a shadowy figure, a doctor whose identity was obscured by foggy memories, whose cold eyes and detached demeanor made the patients tremble. Each new discovery deepened the sense of dread. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and sometimes I swore I heard soft, desperate cries echoing from rooms long sealed off. We took careful notes and photographs, the evidence mounting as we began to piece together the asylum's gruesome legacy. Around midnight, while the rest of our team gathered in what had once been a communal lounge, something changed. I was alone in a corridor with Eliza, cataloguing our finds in a dim corner of a long-forgotten wing. The silence was absolute when suddenly, our flashlights flickered and died. In that pitch black, I felt a cold hand brush against my arm. I jerked back, my heart pounding as I fumbled for my phone's light. When the beam flickered back to life, there was no sign of anyone or anything nearby. Eliza's whispered voice broke the tension. "Did you hear that? It sounded like someone crying." We moved cautiously towards the sound, and what we found in an isolated storage room was both inexplicable and terrifying. A series of crude drawings on the walls, scrawled in what looked like dried blood. The images depicted figures with hollow eyes and contorted limbs, seemingly trapped in eternal torment. In the center, A larger symbol circled a name we recognized from one of the journals, a patient who had mysteriously vanished years before the asylum's closure. The building seemed to come alive that night. Doors slammed on their own, disembodied whispers drifted through the corridors, and shadows danced at the edges of our vision. The tapes, the journals, even the drawings, they all pointed to a force far darker than human cruelty. It was as if the very building was a repository for the tormented souls of its past, and now it was intent on reclaiming us as its new victims. Our team reconvened in the central hall, faces pale and eyes wide with unspoken terror. Marcus tried to regain control of the situation, insisting that it was all explainable by faulty wiring and old building acoustics. But deep down, each of us knew there was something else at play, a malignant presence that thrived on our fear. We debated whether to press on or leave immediately, but a mix of scientific curiosity and a desperate need for closure compelled us to continue. We divided again, this time with a plan to retrace our steps to the recording room and delve further into the asylum's forbidden areas. As I led my pair back down a narrow, winding corridor, I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. The sound of slow, measured footsteps echoed behind us, always a beat too delayed to be our own. I kept glancing back over my shoulder, half expecting to see a figure emerging from the darkness, but saw only the oppressive gloom of empty halls. Then it happened, a moment that would be seared into my memory. We reached a dead-end corridor lined with closed cells. In the far corner, the temperature plummeted, our breath visibly condensing in the air. There, in the reflective surface of a broken mirror, I caught sight of a figure standing motionless. The person was shrouded in darkness, but I could make out a tattered hospital gown and eyes that seemed to burn with sorrow and anger. "Who are you?" I managed to croak, voice trembling. The figure did not respond immediately. Instead, it slowly turned toward us, and I felt an overwhelming wave of despair and menace. In that instant, the memories of the recorded experiments, the tortured journal entries, and the anguished cries of the past merged into a single horrifying realization. The asylum was not just haunted by the dead, it was a prison for lost souls, forever trapped in a cycle of pain and retribution. Before we could react further, a loud crash reverberated through the corridor. The cell's heavy iron doors began to slam shut in unison, sealing off our escape. Panic set in as we scrambled to find another way out. Eliza and I rushed back the way we came, our footsteps echoing in the confined space as we called out to our teammates. The building, as if alive, seemed to twist and change around us. Corridors led to dead ends, and doors that had been open moments before were now locked tight. Desperation gripped our group as we reconvened in the central hall. Marcus, normally the voice of reason, now appeared frantic. "We have to leave now!" he shouted, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of unseen forces. But as we attempted to retrace our steps, every exit was blocked by collapsed walls or locked doors. It became clear that the asylum would not let us go without a fight. One by one, our team members began to vanish. I remember seeing Sarah, her eyes wide with terror, running down a corridor that ended in darkness. A muffled scream followed her, swallowed by the oppressive silence of the asylum. When we tried to follow, there was no trace left, only the echo of her last desperate cry. Panic spread like wildfire. We clung together, our minds reeling with the possibility that we had disturbed something far beyond our understanding. I took charge, leading the remaining members toward what I hoped was an exit I'd noted on our map. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if invisible hands were trying to pull us back into the depths of the asylum. At one point, I nearly lost my footing on a slick patch of water that wasn't there before, a pool of what looked disturbingly like blood. The stench was overpowering, and I fought back nausea as I pressed on. In what seemed like an eternity of disorientation and terror, we finally reached a corridor with a heavy, reinforced door. Behind it, a faint light glimmered, perhaps a way out to the outside world. With our hearts pounding, we forced the door open, only to be met with a room that defied explanation. The walls were covered in a chaotic tapestry of symbols and cryptic messages scrawled in what we could only assume was blood. In the center of the room stood a large, ornate mirror. As I approached, the surface began to ripple like disturbed water, and within it I saw visions of the asylum's past, tortured souls, endless suffering, and a figure that matched the one we'd seen in the corridor. The figure's eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a jolt of raw emotion, pain, despair, and an overwhelming plea for release. In that moment, I realized that the asylum wasn't simply haunted by malevolent spirits, it was a prison of its own making, a place where the boundaries between life and death, sanity and madness, had been obliterated by cruelty and neglect. The mirror seemed to offer both a window and a trap, a promise of escape, but at a price. Marcus's voice echoed behind me. "We have to break it," he said, referring to the mirror. His plan was desperate. Shatter the mirror to break the cycle of torment, to free the souls that had been bound here. With trembling hands, we lifted a heavy metal pipe and brought it down on the mirror. It shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards of glass scattering across the floor. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, time stood still. The oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly, and the corridor beyond the shattered mirror revealed a door we hadn't noticed before, a door that led outside. The air that flowed in from beyond was crisp and real, a stark contrast to the suffocating gloom of the asylum. We fled through that door, our breaths ragged and our minds numb with disbelief. Outside, under the pale glow of the moon, we paused to catch our breath, each of us silently mourning the friends we'd lost and the horrors we'd witnessed. The asylum behind us seemed to sigh, as if relieved to have been unburdened of its secrets for another night. In the days that followed, we attempted to piece together what had happened. The recordings, journals, and even the cryptic drawings became part of our research, a grim testament to the cruelty and suffering that had once taken place within those walls. The experience left us forever changed, marked by a truth too terrible to forget. I often wake at night to the sound of distant screams and the memory of that cold, unyielding gaze in the mirror, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. I share this story not as a work of fiction, but as a recounting of a nightmarish encounter with the past, a true horror etched into the walls of Blackwood Asylum. Whether it was the tortured souls, the malignant presence, or the collective despair of forgotten lives, one thing remains certain: some echoes of the past should never be disturbed. In the end, Blackwood Asylum serves as a grim reminder that history isn't always buried in dusty files. It can be a living, breathing terror waiting in the shadows, ready to reclaim those who dare to remember its dark secrets.